They lived in a world of gold and shadows. Cameras captured their smiles, but the truth lived elsewhere, in secret rooms, whispered phone calls, and sleepless nights. These weren't just actors. They were prisoners of their own legends, guarding sorrows no one dared to name. Fame promised immortality, yet for some it became a beautiful cage. Here are 14 Golden Age stars whose hidden lives were darker than the roles that made them famous. Judy Garland. Judy Garland personified youthful innocence on screen, but her off-screen life was marked by harrowing exploitation and despair. At just a young age, Garland was put under crushing pressure by MGM Studios, forced to work grueling hours, criticized relentlessly for her appearance, and even given pills to control her weight and energy. Studio bosses fed the teen star pep pills, amphetamines by day, to keep her thin and energetic, then barbiturates at night to make her sleep. This toxic regimen led Garland into a lifelong struggle with drug dependency. She also endured alleged sexual harassment by the studio chief, Louis B. Mayer, further traumatizing her youth. As she grew older, the strain manifested in mental health crises. In 1947, while filming The Pirate, Garland suffered a nervous breakdown. Overworked and addicted to the prescribed medications, she began hallucinating, at one point believing she was on fire during a scene. The production's concerned psychiatrist intervened only enough to get her back to work. That same year, Judy attempted suicide, the first of multiple attempts as depression closed in. MGM eventually fired Garland in 1950 after repeated absences and collapses, labeling her unreliable at the mere age of 28. Marilyn Monroe. Marilyn Monroe's platinum blonde bombshell image captivated the world, but behind that radiant facade was a woman plagued by insecurity, trauma, and mental turmoil. Born Norma Jean Mortensen in 1926, Monroe endured a traumatic childhood, shuttling among foster homes and an orphanage while her mother Gladys battled paranoid schizophrenia in mental institutions. This unstable upbringing left deep emotional scars. As Marilyn's fame skyrocketed in the 1950s, the pressures of superstardom exacerbated her inner struggles. She became increasingly reliant on prescription pills and alcohol to cope with anxiety and insomnia. Monroe suffered multiple miscarriages during her marriage to Arthur Miller and openly blamed herself, believing her prior substance abuse had contributed to her fertility woes. By 1961, her third marriage had crumbled and rumors swirled of an affair with President John F. Kennedy, adding public scandal to her stress. Professionally, her behavior grew erratic, often late or unable to work, as depression and addiction took hold. In 1962, while filming Something's Got to Give, Monroe's instability led to her being fired, then briefly rehired as she vowed to recover. Tragically, she never got the chance. On August 5, 1962, 36-year-old Marilyn was found dead in her Los Angeles home, an empty bottle of sleeping pills by her side. Her death was officially ruled a probable suicide from a barbiturate overdose. It shocked the world that the ultimate sex symbol, seemingly on top of the world, had been consumed by such despair. Marilyn Monroe's fragile mental state, marked by hospitalizations, psychoanalysis sessions, and a desperate search for love and stability, remained largely hidden during her life. Rita Hayworth. On screen, Rita Hayworth was the ultimate love goddess, sensual, confident, and adored by millions. But in private, Hayworth's life was shaped by harrowing abuse and heartbreak that she concealed behind her glamorous image. Born Margarita Cancino, she endured a Dickensian childhood. In the 1930s, her father Eduardo, a Spanish-born dancer, made young Rita his partner in a touring dance act. This was no wholesome family venture. According to biographer Barbara Leeming, Rita later confided to Orson Welles, her second husband, that during those years her father sexually abused her. The young teen was also subjected to physical beatings. Eduardo would gamble away their earnings, and, if Rita returned empty-handed from fishing for their dinner, he punished her with his fists, always careful not to leave marks. Such abuse left deep psychological wounds. Rita fled into marriage at 18 to escape her father, only to land with a controlling husband who exploited her, even forcing her through painful electrolysis to change her hairline and pushing her to sleep with powerful producers for roles. Despite this, Hayworth rose to stardom in the 1940s, her sultry performance in Gilda making her an international icon. Yet personal happiness eluded her. "Men went to bed with Gilda," she famously said, "but woke up with me," hinting at the chasm between her image and reality. Her marriages were turbulent, including to Orson Welles and Prince Ali Khan, and all ultimately failed. In later years, Hayworth's radiant screen presence dimmed as she grappled with the early onset of Alzheimer's disease, misdiagnosed in the 1960s as alcoholism. The public only realized something was terribly wrong as her memory and behavior deteriorated in the 1970s. She spent her final years under her daughter's care before succumbing in 1987. Only long after her heyday did people understand that Rita Hayworth's life had been all pain, as Wells put it, scarred by childhood sexual trauma, abusive relationships, and an illness that stole her very self in the end. Montgomery Clift. Montgomery Clift was one of Hollywood's most talented leading men, known for his sensitive, brooding performances. Behind his handsome face and 4 Oscar nominations lay the long suicide, as one writer termed it, a life of hidden torment that led to tragedy. Clift was gay at a time when living openly was impossible for a star. He kept his sexuality an unspoken secret, maintaining a solitary, almost monk-like personal life. Biographers note that only in the 1970s, after his death, did close friends confirm what had long been whispered, that Clift was homosexual. The strain of keeping this fundamental part of himself hidden contributed to his feelings of isolation and depression. For a while, Clift managed to channel his inner turmoil into extraordinary acting. But in 1956, in the prime of his career, disaster struck. Driving home from a party at Elizabeth Taylor's house, Clift crashed his car and was nearly killed. The accident shattered his face, reconstructed in surgery, and left him in chronic pain, physically and emotionally. The once beautiful idol now saw a stranger in the mirror, deepening his mental anguish. Clift, who already drank heavily, spiraled further into addiction to alcohol and pills in an attempt to dull his pain. Close friends described the following years as the longest suicide in Hollywood history, as Monty's health and career declined. By the early 1960s, he was a shadow of himself, trembling on set, unreliable, and heartbreakingly sad. Still, he fought on, delivering a few more acclaimed performances, even earning an Oscar nod for Judgment at Nuremberg in 1961, despite his worsening state. On July 23, 1966, Montgomery Clift died in his New York townhouse at just 45, the official cause a heart attack. Rock Hudson. To 1950s moviegoers, Rock Hudson was the embodiment of the straight, masculine ideal, the strapping romantic hero of films like Giant and Pillow Talk. In reality, Hudson spent his entire adult life concealing that he was gay, forced to live a double life to protect his career. Studio handlers arranged dates with starlets and even a short-lived marriage to his agent's secretary, all to maintain his all-American leading man image. Privately, Hudson carefully guarded his secret, confiding only in a trusted circle. Friends later recalled how their socializing was done mostly at the Castle, Hudson's Beverly Hills home, rather than public venues, so that the actor could be himself away from prying eyes. For decades he carried on like this, the strain of secrecy and ever-present weight. By the 1980s, Hudson faced an even more harrowing private battle, one he initially kept hidden as well. He had contracted HIV at a time when AIDS was a terrifying new epidemic, and in 1985, his condition suddenly worsened. Hudson became gravely ill, and in July 1985, his publicist finally confirmed that the actor had AIDS, making Hudson the first major celebrity to openly have the disease. The revelation was seismic. Hollywood's epitome of heterosexual desire was revealed not only to have been a closeted gay man, but to be suffering from what was then a virtual death sentence. In his final weeks, Rock Hudson faced his illness courageously. His friend Elizabeth Taylor stayed by his side, later remembering how others kept a polite distance due to fear of AIDS, while she held Hudson's hand. On October 2, 1985, Rock Hudson died at age 59 from AIDS-related complications. His death, splashed across headlines worldwide, became a turning point in public awareness of the disease. Only after his passing did many fans comprehend the full tragedy of his life, how this beloved Hollywood idol had been living a closeted gay lifestyle in secret, and how his final act was to inadvertently put a public face on the AIDS crisis, transforming perceptions in the process. Frances Farmer. Frances Farmer's story remains one of Hollywood's most haunting cautionary tales. A rising starlet of the 1930s known for her rebellious streak and striking talent, Farmer's independent spirit clashed with the era's strict studio system and social norms. By her mid-20s, Farmer's erratic behavior and heavy drinking led to a downward spiral that saw her declared legally insane and committed to mental institutions where, according to later accounts, she suffered horrendous mistreatment. The standard narrative of Frances Farmer's life is almost too horrific to fathom. It claims that she was subjected to brutal electroshock therapy, ice-cold hydrotherapy, isolation, and even sexual assaults while confined in psychiatric wards. Some reports, sensationalized in film and books, even alleged she was lobotomized, though her family and doctors later disputed that as a myth. What is documented is that Farmer spent years from 1944 to 1950 in Western State Hospital in Washington, often heavily sedated and in grim conditions. In one course of treatment, she underwent electroshock sessions 3 times a week for months, leaving her a complete recovery on paper, but a broken woman in reality. The behaviors that led to Frances's incarceration, driving under the influence, lashing out at police and industry figures, were scandalous then, but by modern standards might be seen as signs of substance use disorder or bipolar illness, treatable conditions, not crimes. Instead, Farmer became effectively a prisoner of the psychiatric system in an era of crude methods. When she was finally released in 1950, she was a fragile remnant of her former self. She attempted a comeback, even appearing on live television in the mid-1950s, but the spark was gone. Farmer lived out her later years quietly and died of cancer in 1970 at age 56. While some details of her institutionalization remain disputed, there is no doubt that Frances Farmer's secret life behind the studio facade was a nightmare of mental illness and involuntary treatments that violated her body and spirit. A true Hollywood tragedy of a vibrant woman brutalized into silence. Loretta Young. Loretta Young cultivated an image as a paragon of virtue in Hollywood's golden era, a devout Catholic actress who often played wholesome heroines. But for decades, Young guarded a stunning secret. She had borne a child out of wedlock with Clark Gable and went to elaborate lengths to hide her daughter's true parentage to protect her career and reputation. The scandal began on the set of The Call of the Wild, 1935, when 22-year-old Loretta had an affair with her co-star, the married Clark Gable. She became pregnant, an unthinkable situation in 1930s Hollywood due to strict morality clauses. Young disappeared from the public eye, going to Europe and then a secret hideaway to carry the baby to term. In November 1935, she gave birth to a daughter, whom she named Judy. Rather than risk ruin by admitting the truth, Loretta staged an elaborate ruse. She placed baby Judy in an orphanage temporarily, then adopted her own biological daughter months later, presenting the 19-month-old as an orphan she had rescued. The subterfuge fooled the press and public for years, though rumors swirled because little Judy Lewis had Gable's telltale ears and smile. Loretta Young never told Gable of the child. He never acknowledged Judy in his lifetime, and steadfastly denied the truth in public, even to her own daughter, for decades. Judy Lewis later recounted how she confronted her mother as a young adult in 1966. Loretta privately confessed that, yes, your father was Clark Gable, but still would not do so openly. Not until Judy published a memoir in 1994, Uncommon Knowledge, did the full story emerge, by which time Young was in her 80s. Loretta then finally admitted the truth before her death. This heartbreaking secret, a daughter made to feel not accepted, and a mother racked by guilt and fear of scandal, casts a somber shadow over Loretta Young's fairy tale image. Joan Crawford. Joan Crawford's steely glamour, talent, and determination carried her from a rough childhood to the heights of stardom. But perhaps no Golden Age star's private life has been as shockingly recast as Crawford's was by her eldest daughter's tell-all memoir. In 1978, a year after Joan's death, Christina Crawford published Mommy Dearest, alleging that behind the scenes, the famed actress was an abusive, frightening mother who subjected her children to years of cruelty. According to Christina's memoir and subsequent interviews, Joan Crawford's impeccable public persona, the gracious movie star and devoted adoptive mother of 4, concealed a much darker reality. Christina wrote that Joan was an alcoholic who, in drunken rages, would beat and berate her and her brother. The book describes nightmarish night raids, in which Crawford, enraged and intoxicated, would wake the children after midnight to scream at them for imaginary slights or force them to clean messes that didn't exist. She allegedly yanked Christina around by the hair, hit her with paddles and coat hangers, the infamous no-wire hangers incident made famous by the film adaptation, and even choked her to the point of unconsciousness on one occasion. Christina depicted her mother as obsessively controlling, enforcing rigid rules, doling out punishments unpredictably, and instilling terror in the household. She slapped, kicked, punched, and tried to strangle her daughter, The Guardian summarized, noting how Joan forced the children to adhere to a strict regimen of chores and etiquette while she herself spiraled out of control with anger and drink. At the time these events took place, no one outside the family suspected such horrors. Friends and colleagues knew Joan as temperamental and driven, but nothing like the mommy dearest portrait. Even when the book came out, some refused to believe it, though others validated that Joan had a mercurial, difficult side. Today, most accept that at least some of Christina's disturbing claims are true, that Joan Crawford's immaculate public image hid a secret life as an abusive parent behind closed doors. It's a deeply sad legacy for a woman who fought so hard to reach the top, only to have her own daughter declare that, in private, "My mother should have been in jail for what she did." Errol Flynn. Errol Flynn's on-screen adventures made him the archetypal charming rogue of 1930s Hollywood. Captain Blood, Robin Hood, and other swashbuckling roles cemented his legend. But Flynn's off-screen life was as scandalous as any plot, filled with excess and dubious exploits that were kept as quiet as possible. In 1943, Flynn was the subject of a sensational rape trial, accused of statutory rape by 2 underage girls, a real-life courtroom drama that nearly destroyed him. The handsome star was charged with sexually assaulting Peggy Satterley, 15, on his yacht, and Betty Hansen, 17, at a party. The case grabbed headlines worldwide, exposing Flynn's womanizing and partying to public scrutiny. Although he was ultimately acquitted by a jury, his high-priced lawyers discredited the young accusers during the trial. The lurid testimony confirmed Flynn's taste for very young women. The scandal gave birth to the phrase, "in like Flynn," a sly reference to his sexual escapades and the notion that he could get away with anything. Indeed, even after the trial, Flynn's reputation remained that of a devil-may-care libertine. He drank to excess from his teen years onward, used drugs, and caroused through 3 marriages and countless affairs. By his 40s, the consequences of this hedonism were catching up. Flynn's health deteriorated rapidly. He was often ill, bloated from alcoholism, and old before his time. In 1959, while in Vancouver, the 50-year-old actor died of a massive heart attack. The coroner remarked that Flynn's body was worn out, like that of a 75-year-old, from years of hard living. Though not all of Flynn's misdeeds were secret, his 1940s trial was very public. The studio system had covered up earlier incidents. There were whispers of quiet payoffs in other matters, and the full extent of his debauchery became clear only posthumously with the publication of his scandalous memoir, My Wicked, Wicked Ways. Errol Flynn's life of excess, the teenage lovers, the non-stop boozing, and hints of even darker behavior was a far cry from the gallant heroes he portrayed. It stands as one of Hollywood's earliest examples of a megastar's secret vices exploding into public view. Clara Bow. In the roaring 1920s, Clara Bow was Hollywood's original it girl, a vivacious flapper and sex symbol who personified carefree fun on screen. But Bow's exuberant image hid the scars of a Dickensian childhood filled with abuse, poverty, and men into seclusion. Born into slums in Brooklyn, Clara grew up with a mother who was mentally unstable, later institutionalized, and a father who was often absent, and when present, dangerously abusive. According to Bow's biographer David Sten, Clara's mother once attempted to murder her teenage daughter with a knife in a fit of psychosis, an attack Clara barely escaped. Even more horrific, Bow later revealed that her father sexually molested her when she was a child, shattering any sense of safety. These traumatic experiences left Clara emotionally raw and craving love. She found escape in acting and rocketed to fame in films like It, 1927. Yet Hollywood, with its gossip and pressures, wasn't kind to her sensitive soul. Scandal magazines circulated wild, often exaggerated tales of Bow's love life and partying. In reality, she was desperately coping with the demons of her childhood that she could never quite shake. By 1930, as talkies arrived, Clara's mental health began to crumble. She suffered what would today likely be deemed a nervous breakdown, erratic behavior, bouts of severe insomnia, and weight fluctuations. By 1931, the once bright star's reputation was tarnished by gossip, and she walked away from Hollywood at just 28 years old. In the 1940s, Bow was diagnosed with schizophrenia and underwent shock treatments. She spent her final decades away from the spotlight, living on a Nevada ranch and later in a modest bungalow, battling her mental illness in private. Lana Turner. Lana Turner was the ultimate glamour queen, the sweater girl with big screen charisma and a string of hit films. But in 1958, Turner's private life erupted into a scandal so shocking it seemed ripped from a film noir. At home, Lana had been ensnared in a violently abusive relationship with mob-connected gangster Johnny Stompanato, a situation that turned deadly when Lana's 14-year-old daughter, Cheryl Crane, stabbed Stompanato to protect her mother. Turner had met Stompanato, a handsome but volatile man with ties to LA's underworld, in 1957. He soon became possessive and physically abusive. Friends later recounted that Lana often sported bruises under her makeup. On the night of April 4, 1958, the cycle of domestic violence came to a head. Stompanato was in Lana's bedroom, allegedly threatening to kill her during a heated argument, when young Cheryl, terrified for her mother, grabbed a kitchen knife and burst into the room. In the chaos, Cheryl thrust the blade into Stompanato's abdomen. Mortally wounded, he collapsed. Lana Turner frantically tried to save him, but it was too late. The ensuing inquest transfixed the nation. Turner took the stand, in tears, recounting the harrowing events and effectively confirming that Stompanato had been menacing her that night. The coroner's jury ruled the killing a justifiable homicide. Cheryl Crane was not charged with any crime. However, Lana's carefully managed reputation took a hit as tawdry details of her love life filled newspapers. It emerged that the glamorous star had been living in fear, under the thumb of a violent lover, until her adolescent daughter intervened in the most dramatic fashion. After the tragedy, Turner tried to carry on with her career, but she was never quite free of the shadow of that night. She married and divorced twice more, and as she aged, the public's interest often fixated on the sensational chapter of Stompanato's death. Jean Tierney. Jean Tierney was celebrated as one of the most beautiful actresses of the 1940s, immortalized in film noir classics like Laura. But Tierney's life took a series of heartbreaking turns that nearly pushed her to the brink. In 1943, Tierney was pregnant with her first child when a fan's thoughtless action led to catastrophe. Jean contracted rubella German measles at a public appearance, and as a result, her baby daughter Daria was born deaf, partially blind, and severely developmentally disabled. Tierney was devastated to learn that an admirer, breaking a quarantine, had approached her for an autograph while unknowingly infectious. The guilt and sorrow over Daria's condition weighed heavily on Jean. While she loved her child, Daria required institutional care, which Tierney and her husband, designer Oleg Cassini, painfully arranged. The trauma of this and a tumultuous marriage, Cassini and Tierney's relationship was marred by infidelity and financial strain, sent Tierney into a spiral of depression. By the early 1950s, her mental health had deteriorated. On the set of The Left Hand of God in 1955, co-star Humphrey Bogart noticed Tierney's distress. She struggled to remember lines and seemed detached. He gently urged her to get treatment. Tierney sought help, but faced the crude psychiatry of the era. She underwent a series of electroshock therapy treatments in 1956-57 that left her memory impaired and her spirit drained. Things came to a head when Jean nearly committed suicide in 1957. She was found standing on a ledge of her mother's high-rise apartment, ready to jump, until someone talked her down in time. Following this incident, Tierney spent a lengthy period at the Menninger Clinic, a psychiatric hospital, slowly recovering. By the early 1960s, her condition had stabilized enough for a brief Hollywood comeback, but her heart was no longer in it. Gloria Grahame. Gloria Grahame, a sultry actress who won an Academy Award for The Bad and the Beautiful 1952, harbored one of the most shocking secrets of old Hollywood. Her talent for playing femme fatales was legendary, but no script could have invented the scandal that unfolded in her personal life. During her marriage to director Nicholas Ray, Grahame was discovered to be having an illicit affair with Ray's own teenage son from a previous marriage. In 1951, Nicholas Ray allegedly came home to find Gloria in bed with 13-year-old Tony Ray, her stepson. This bombshell effectively ended the marriage on the spot. Nicholas Ray kept the reason for their breakup quiet at the time, citing mental cruelty in the divorce, and the studio suppressed any hint of impropriety, but Hollywood insiders buzzed about the rumor. Astonishingly, the story didn't end there. Graham's relationship with Tony Ray resumed years later when he reached adulthood. In 1960, at age 25, Tony Ray married 37-year-old Gloria Grahame in a secret ceremony in Tijuana, Mexico, once he was legally able to wed. They even had 2 children together. When news of the marriage eventually surfaced, it sent shockwaves through the industry and the public. It seemed like a plot too scandalous to be true, yet it was. The revelation effectively blackballed Grahame in Hollywood. By the early 1960s, major studios steered clear of her, and she worked mostly in stage and TV roles thereafter. Grahame herself always dodged or downplayed the controversy. Barbara Payton. Barbara Payton's life reads like a cautionary fable of Hollywood dreams curdling into nightmares. In the late 1940s, Payton was a stunning blonde starlet on the rise. She won roles alongside heavyweights like James Cagney and Gregory Peck, and studios touted her as a potential new Marilyn Monroe. But Barbara's taste for the wild side and a series of terrible choices led her down a secret path of self-destruction. By the end of her 30s, Payton had fallen from earning $10,000 a week to literally prostituting herself on Sunset Boulevard for $5 tricks, consumed by alcoholism and drug addiction. Her downward spiral began with tumultuous romances and scandal. In 1951, she infamously was engaged to actor Franchot Tone, while also involved with bad boy actor Tom Neal. The love triangle exploded when Neal beat Tone into a coma in a jealous rage. The lurid publicity ruined Barbara's reputation. Work offers dried up as her hard partying and unreliable behavior became known. By 1953, her film career was essentially over. The years that followed were a horror show, mostly hidden from public view. Payton drank constantly, got arrested multiple times for public intoxication, writing bad checks, prostitution, and lost her looks and money. From about 1960 on, she truly lived on the margins, turning occasional tricks for cash, living in squalid motels on Hollywood's Skid Row, and suffering abusive relationships. Friends who encountered her were shocked at the decline of the once radiant actress. In 1967, Barbara Payton died at only 39 years old, officially of heart and liver failure brought on by her chronic alcoholism. If you found this look into the dark side of stardom compelling, be sure to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts below.